Welcome back to Pocket Change Coins, where every coin could be a hidden treasure. First, we're revealing coins that might be worth a fortune right under your nose. If you're new here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join our hunt for rare and valuable finds. Let's dive in. We're diving deep into the 1965 Washington $quarter coin, a coin that may just surprise you with its hidden value. We're talking about a coin from the heart of the 1960s, a decade filled with social change, technological advancements, and the turbulent echoes of history. But this coin isn't just a piece of the past, it could potentially be worth a lot more than you think. The 1965 Washington quarter might not initially stand out in a collection. After all, it's a coin with the same basic design we've seen for decades: George Washington's profile on the obverse and the eagle on the reverse. But don't be fooled. This quarter, minted right in the middle of a transformative period for America, is far from ordinary. It's packed with stories, errors, and opportunities for those who know where to look. In 1965, America was coming off the heels of a whirlwind decade. The civil rights movement, the space race, and the Cultural Revolution were in full swing. The country was also experiencing economic challenges, which led to the U.S. Mint making a significant decision that would affect the quarters that came out that year. For the first time since the late 1800s, the composition of U.S. quarters changed. Normally composed of 90% silver, quarters from 1965 onward were made with a clad composition of 75% copper and 25% nickel, a shift meant to help curb rising silver costs. This change is crucial because it set the stage for the potential value of the 1965 Washington quarter. While most of the coins from this year were struck in this copper-nickel alloy, a select few were mistakenly struck with a silver composition. Yes, that's right, there are some 1965 quarters out there that are 90% silver, and these are the ones that collectors are desperate to get their hands on. The 1965 silver quarter is incredibly rare, and that rarity is what drives up its value. You see, the U.S. Mint had planned to stop using silver in circulation coins, but because the composition change was rushed, a small number of quarters, around 2,000 to 3,000, were accidentally struck with the old silver composition. These are now considered one of the most valuable mint errors of the 20th century, and they are coveted by serious collectors. If you happen to have one of these silver quarters in your collection, you're sitting on something truly extraordinary. But the story doesn't stop with just silver quarters. There are also varieties of the 1965 quarter that have other errors that can make them much more valuable than the average coin. One of the most sought-after errors is the double die obverse. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly, creating a doubled image on certain parts of the coin. Look closely at the word liberty or the motto, "In God We Trust." If you notice any doubling of the letters, you could be holding onto a double die 1965 quarter, which is much rarer and more valuable than a standard coin. Another error that collectors are excited about is the misaligned die. When the coin's die isn't properly aligned with the planchet, it can create a striking effect where part of the coin's design is missing or off-center. These misaligned die errors are fascinating because they show that no two coins are ever completely the same, and they are highly prized in the coin collecting community. If you find a 1965 Washington quarter with a significant misalignment, you're looking at a coin that could fetch more than just its face value. Even without these rare errors, the condition of a coin plays a crucial role in its value. A quarter from 1965 that has been kept in pristine, uncirculated condition is much more valuable than one that has been circulated over the years. Coins with minimal wear and tear, no scratches, and a sharp, crisp design are always in higher demand. So, if you happen to have a well-preserved 1965 Washington quarter in your collection, its value could already be higher than you think, especially if you've managed to keep it in mint condition. Now, let's talk numbers. The value of a typical 1965 Washington quarter in average condition may not be anything too extraordinary. But if you've got one with a mint error, such as a silver composition or a double die obverse, the value skyrockets. So, what's the actual worth of this quarter? If you have one of the extremely rare 1965 silver quarters, or even one with a significant error like the double die obverse, the price could easily reach $150,000. Yes, you read that correctly, $150,000. That's the kind of value some of these coins can fetch, and it all depends on the rarity of the error and the condition of the coin. A coin that was once just a piece of pocket change could now be worth a small fortune. It's remarkable to think that such a small, seemingly ordinary piece of currency could have such an incredible story behind it. So, before you toss out those loose quarters or let them gather dust in a drawer, take a closer look. You might be holding a hidden gem, especially if you have a 1965 Washington quarter. Look for those telltale signs of minting errors, check the condition of the coin, and if you're lucky enough to have one of those rare finds, you could be looking at a significant payday. Second rare coin, we're going to dive deep into a coin that's not only a part of American history but also a potential goldmine for collectors, the 1971 Washington $quarter coin. Now, this might seem like a run-of-the-mill coin at first, but I assure you, there's more to this piece of currency than meets the eye. Let's explore how this simple 25-cent coin could be worth far more than you might have imagined. The 1971 Washington quarter was minted during an important transitional period in the United States. We were in the midst of the post-Vietnam era, and the country was moving through an era of change, both politically and socially. It was a time when the U.S. Mint was continuing to produce the familiar design of George Washington's profile on the obverse and the iconic eagle on the reverse, a design that has graced quarters since 1932. But despite its familiarity, the 1971 quarter has some very interesting characteristics that make it stand out, especially for collectors who know what to look for. Let's start by looking at the minting process itself. In 1971, the U.S. Mint produced millions of these coins, and while most of them were struck and released into circulation without much fanfare, some of them escaped with significant minting errors that would make them valuable pieces for the right collectors. If you happen to have a 1971 Washington quarter that's been well preserved, or better yet, has a rare error, you could have something that's worth far more than its face value of just 25 cents. The first thing to look out for when evaluating your 1971 Washington quarter is whether or not there are minting errors that could dramatically increase its value. One of the most common and sought-after errors for quarters from this time period is the double die obverse. This happens when the coin's design is struck more than once, causing parts of the image to appear doubled. If you inspect the lettering, particularly the word Liberty or the motto, "In God We Trust," you might spot a noticeable doubling effect. Coins with double die errors are incredibly popular with collectors because of their unique appearance, and they can fetch much higher prices than a regular coin from the same year. Another error to look out for is a misaligned die. This occurs when the die used to strike the coin is not properly centered, causing part of the design to appear off-center or even partially missing. A misaligned die error can make a coin look very different from a standard issue, which is why it is considered a rare find. These types of errors are highly prized by collectors, as they make each coin unique. If you come across a 1971 Washington quarter with this kind of error, it could be worth a lot more than you think. Now, let's talk about the condition of the coin. Even if you don't have an error coin, the state of the coin plays a huge role in determining its value. Coins that have been used and circulated extensively tend to be worn down, and their designs aren't as sharp. But if you've managed to find a well-preserved 1971 Washington quarter, one that's free from scratches, dings, or other visible signs of wear, it could be considered in mint condition. Coins in pristine condition are always more valuable, and they attract higher bids at auctions and among collectors. Another interesting aspect of the 1971 Washington quarter is the varieties in its strike. While the design remained the same, slight differences in the way the dies were created, or variations in the metal composition, could lead to small, subtle differences in the coins. These differences can make certain coins more desirable to collectors looking for specific variants. Though these types of differences might seem small to the casual observer, they are incredibly important to coin enthusiasts who specialize in certain years or series. A subtle die variety could be the difference between a standard quarter and a much more valuable piece of history. So, what's the value of a 1971 Washington quarter? Well, as with most coins, the value depends heavily on the condition and any errors or unique characteristics it may have. For most circulated 1971 quarters, the value is pretty close to face value, just 25 cents. But if you have one of those rare mint errors like the double die obverse or misaligned die, the value could be much higher. In fact, coins with these errors could easily fetch thousands of dollars. And, if your coin happens to be in pristine, uncirculated condition with one of these rare errors, the value could rise to a staggering amount. Now, the ultimate surprise, the 1971 Washington quarter, with the right characteristics and rarity, can reach an unbelievable value of $120,000. Yes, you heard that right, $120,000 for a single 1971 quarter. That's the kind of value you could be looking at if you've got the right coin with a rare minting error or in top condition. So, what's the takeaway here? If you've got a 1971 Washington quarter, it's worth taking a close look at the details. Check for minting errors, assess its condition, and make sure to get it evaluated if you suspect it could be more valuable than a typical coin. Whether you find a rare double die, a misaligned die, or just a beautifully preserved piece of history, you could be sitting on a coin that's worth a small fortune. Third expensive coin, we're diving into a piece of American history that might just be hiding in your pocket change right now, the 1973 Washington $quarter coin. It's a coin that might look familiar at first glance, but when you dig a little deeper, you'll see that it could be worth much more than its face value. Whether you're a seasoned collector or just starting out, stick around because we're about to explore the hidden gems of the 1973 Washington quarter, the errors that could make it rare, and how some of these coins can fetch prices that will make your jaw drop. Now, let's start by taking a look at the basic design of this coin. The 1973 Washington quarter features the familiar image of George Washington, the first president of the United States, on the obverse, with his profile in classic design. The reverse features an eagle perched on a branch, symbolizing strength and freedom, an image that has been a part of the quarter since 1932. At first glance, this may seem like just another standard quarter you'd find in your pocket or purse, but this coin holds valuable secrets that not every collector knows about. The 1973 Washington quarter was minted during a time when the U.S. Mint was producing millions of quarters for circulation. However, not all of them were made perfectly. Some of these coins left the mint with striking errors, and it's those errors that have made the 1973 Washington quarter particularly interesting to collectors today. These coins, with their unique flaws or variations, are often worth far more than the standard quarter, especially when they are in pristine condition. Let's talk about one of the most exciting things for collectors, the mint errors that can make a coin rare and valuable. One of the most sought-after errors in the 1973 Washington quarter series is the double die obverse. This occurs when the coin's design is struck more than once, causing part of the lettering or image to appear doubled. The most common areas you'll see this error is in the Liberty or the motto, "In God We Trust." If you take a close look at these areas and notice any doubling, then you may have just found a rare double die error, which can send the value of your quarter skyrocketing. Collectors go crazy for coins with double die errors because they are unique and often incredibly hard to find. Another common mint error to look for in the 1973 Washington quarter is the misaligned die error. This happens when the coin's die isn't properly aligned during the striking process, causing part of the design to be missing or off-center. This misalignment can make your coin look very different from the typical 1973 quarter, and if you find one with this error, you could be holding on to something very special. Coins with misaligned dies are highly sought after because they show a rare flaw in the minting process, making them stand out from the millions of perfectly struck coins produced that year. Of course, not every 1973 Washington quarter will have one of these minting errors, but that doesn't mean your coin is worthless. The condition of the coin plays a huge role in determining its value. A well-preserved quarter that has been kept in mint condition is always more valuable than one that has been worn down through years of circulation. If you happen to have a 1973 quarter that looks like it just came out of the mint, with sharp, clean designs and no noticeable wear or damage, you may have a coin worth a lot more than the typical 25 cents, but what about the rarest of the rare? Some 1973 Washington quarters were struck using slightly different metal alloys or even during different production conditions, creating subtle differences that collectors love to find. These slight variations in the coin's appearance or composition can make some 1973 quarters much more valuable, especially if the differences are caught early and identified by numismatists and collectors who specialize in these kinds of rare finds. Now, let's get to the important question: how much is the 1973 Washington quarter actually worth? If you have a typical 1973 quarter in circulated condition, the value is pretty close to face value, around 25 cents. However, if you have one of the rare minting errors like the double die obverse or the misaligned die, the value can increase dramatically. In some cases, these error coins can be worth thousands of dollars depending on the rarity and the degree of the flaw, but that's not the end of the story. If you happen to have a pristine, uncirculated 1973 Washington quarter with one of these rare mint errors, you could be looking at a coin worth far more than you could imagine. For those lucky enough to have found a 1973 Washington quarter with one of the rarest errors, like the double die obverse or misaligned die, it's not unheard of for these coins to be worth $110,000. Yes, you heard that right, $110,000. That's the kind of value these rare, mint error 1973 Washington quarters can fetch at auctions or private sales. So, the next time you dig through a box of old coins or check your loose change, make sure to look closely at your 1973 quarters. What seems like a simple piece of currency could actually be a treasure waiting to be discovered. In conclusion, the 1973 Washington quarter may not seem like a coin of high value at first glance, but with the right mint errors, condition, and attention to detail, it could very well be worth a small fortune. If you find a double die error, misaligned die, or have a pristine uncirculated version, you could be holding a coin worth $110,000. So, take a moment to inspect your quarters. You might just have a hidden gem in your collection. Now, we're going to be talking about a coin that may seem simple at first glance, but could hold significant value: the 1982 Washington quarter dollar coin. The Washington quarter is one of the most iconic coins in the United States, and it's been in circulation for decades, featuring the profile of George Washington, the first president of the U.S., on the obverse. Over the years, collectors have built an interest in certain years of this coin, and the 1982 is one of those years that holds more value than you might expect. So, whether you're new to coin collecting or a seasoned pro, stick around, because we're going to dive into why this coin can be worth a lot more than just 25 cents. Let's start by understanding the background. The 1982 Washington quarter was minted at the Denver Mint, marked with the D mint mark that signifies it was produced in Denver, Colorado. At first glance, this coin seems like it was just another standard quarter made for general circulation, and in many ways, it was. But what makes this particular year and mint mark so interesting is the unique characteristics and potential minting errors that make certain 1982 quarters extremely rare and valuable. In terms of design, the 1982 quarter still featured the classic depiction of George Washington on the obverse and the eagle perched on an olive branch on the reverse, which has been a hallmark of the Washington quarter since 1932. However, there are certain factors about the 1982 Washington quarter that make it a favorite among collectors. Let's talk about what could elevate the value of this coin. One of the first things that collectors should keep an eye out for is the condition of the coin. As with most coins, the grade or condition plays a crucial role in determining its value. For example, a quarter that has been well preserved, free from scratches, dents, or visible wear, will fetch a significantly higher price than a coin that has been worn down through circulation. A pristine, uncirculated 1982 Washington quarter could already increase the value of the coin, simply by being in excellent condition, but condition alone isn't the only factor that makes a coin valuable. The most exciting part of coin collecting is often the minting errors, those unique flaws or variations that occur during the production process. And that's where the 1982 Washington quarter shines for collectors. Some of these coins left the mint with striking errors, making them much more valuable than standard quarters. One of the most valuable types of error to look out for is the double die error. The double die obverse error happens when a coin is struck more than once by the die, causing the design to appear doubled or shifted. This error can affect the lettering, the details on George Washington's profile, or even the motto, E pluribus unum. If you spot a double die on your 1982 Washington quarter, you could be holding on to a rare and valuable piece of history. Double die coins are highly sought after by collectors, and their unique appearance makes them stand out from the rest of the coins minted that year. Another potential error to watch for in the 1982 D quarter is the misaligned die error. This error occurs when the die used to strike the coin is not properly aligned, causing part of the design to be off-center or incomplete. A misaligned die can cause the coin to look unusual, with certain parts of the image appearing shifted or missing altogether. These types of errors make the coin even more desirable to collectors, as they represent a rare flaw in the minting process. There are also die cracks that can sometimes be found on 1982 D Washington quarters. These cracks form on the die itself and get transferred onto the coin. If you spot a crack in the design, especially if it's large or extends across a prominent feature, it's worth noting that die cracks can also increase a coin's value, especially when they occur in unusual patterns. Now, let's get down to the important question: just how much is the 1982 D Washington quarter worth? For most of the standard 1982 D quarters in circulated condition, the value will be close to face value, about 25 cents. However, for those quarters that are in uncirculated condition, or for those with minting errors like double die, misaligned die, or die cracks, the value can skyrocket. So, if you happen to have an uncirculated 1982 D Washington quarter or one with a rare minting error, you might be looking at a value of up to $99,000. Yes, you heard that right, $99,000 for a single coin. A rare, error-filled quarter could easily fetch huge sums of money if it's in the right condition and the right hands, but that's not all. For those of you who might be lucky enough to find an error coin that has been professionally graded and identified, the price could go even higher, depending on the exact nature of the error and the rarity of the coin. If you find a double die error on a quarter that's been kept in top condition, you could be holding a true collector's treasure. So, next time you come across a 1982 D Washington quarter, take a moment to look it over carefully. Check for minting errors, inspect its condition, and make sure you don't miss any subtle details that could make it a rare find. Whether it's a double die, a misaligned die, or just a beautifully preserved quarter, it could be worth a lot more than just 25 cents. Next coin, we're exploring one of the most intriguing coins in the world of American currency, the 1988 D Washington quarter-dollar coin. At first glance, it may seem like just another coin from a year that's long gone, but trust me when I say, this quarter is not just a piece of pocket change. Hidden within its design, condition, and potential minting errors lies an incredible value that could make any coin collector's heart race. So, buckle up as we dive into why this seemingly common coin is anything but ordinary. The 1988 D Washington quarter features the familiar profile of George Washington on the obverse, the first president of the United States, and on the reverse, you'll find the eagle perched on an olive branch, the symbol of America's strength and peace. This design has been a staple of the quarter since 1932. But despite its seemingly straightforward appearance, the 1988 D quarter has a lot more to offer than meets the eye. Now, you might be wondering, why should I care about a 1988 D Washington quarter? Well, that's where the magic lies. Most of the 1988 D quarters were minted in large quantities and circulated freely, which means, they are often seen in everyday change. But collectors know that this coin could have a much higher value if it has the right characteristics. So, let's break it down and see what makes this quarter stand out. The first and most important factor to consider is the condition of the coin. If you happen to have a 1988 D Washington quarter in pristine, uncirculated condition, it could already be worth more than face value. Coins that are well preserved are always more desirable to collectors, and when it comes to the 1988 D quarter, a coin that has been kept in mint condition, with sharp details and no visible signs of wear, can fetch a significantly higher price. The cleaner and more well-preserved the coin is, the more valuable it becomes. So, if you have a shiny, fresh-looking 1988 D quarter, you may be sitting on a potential treasure. However, condition alone isn't always enough to make a coin truly valuable. In the world of coin collecting, it's often the minting errors that make certain coins truly stand out. The 1988 D Washington quarter is no exception. As with many coins, some of these quarters left the Denver Mint with striking flaws, and it's these flaws that could make a particular coin highly sought after. Let's talk about one of the most exciting and valuable types of errors you should look out for, the double die error. A double die obverse occurs when the coin's die strikes the blank planchet more than once, causing part of the design to appear doubled. This can happen with the lettering, the date, or even certain parts of George Washington's face. If you spot a doubled word like Liberty or In God We Trust, you could have a rare and valuable error coin on your hands. Double die coins are a collector's dream because they're unique and hard to find, which increases their worth in the marketplace. Another error to keep an eye on is the misaligned die error. This happens when the dies used to strike the coin are not aligned properly, causing the coin's design to be off-center or imperfectly struck. If you find a 1988 D Washington quarter where the design is shifted to one side or part of the image is missing, you could be holding a misaligned die error, which makes the coin more valuable to collectors. Aside from minting errors, there's also the matter of scarcity. While the 1988 D Washington quarter was produced in large quantities, not all coins were treated equally. Some were lost, some were damaged, and some were even melted down over the years. This means that the number of well-preserved, error-free, or error-prone coins in existence is much smaller than it may seem. As a result, the rarity of a coin can significantly increase its value over time. So, what's the bottom line here? How much could a 1988 D Washington quarter be worth? If you have one of these quarters in perfect condition, without any visible damage and with sharp, clean designs, it could already be worth a nice premium over face value. However, when you factor in minting errors like double die or misaligned die, or even just a well-preserved, near-mint example, the value goes up substantially. In fact, a 1988 D Washington quarter, especially one with rare minting errors or in exceptional condition, could be worth $70,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $70,000 for a single coin. That's how valuable a well-preserved, error-filled, or unique 1988 D quarter can be. So, if you're going through your loose change or hunting for hidden treasures, don't overlook this coin. It could be sitting right there in your collection, waiting for you to discover its true worth. So, how do you spot one of these rare gems? The key is to inspect each coin closely. Look for any signs of doubling, misalignment, or other unusual features. If you find one that fits the bill, make sure to have it professionally graded by a trusted numismatic expert. Proper certification can help you determine its true value and potentially put you in touch with collectors willing to pay top dollar for your find. Last unique coin, we're diving into a fascinating topic for all you collectors out there, the 1991 D Washington $quarter coin. While this coin might seem like just another everyday quarter at first glance, believe me when I say there's more to this coin than meets the eye. Whether you're a seasoned collector or a newcomer to the hobby, stick around as we uncover what makes this particular Washington quarter stand out, and why it could be worth far more than just 25 cents. First, let's talk a bit about the Washington quarter itself. The design of the Washington quarter has been relatively unchanged since 1932, with the iconic profile of George Washington on the obverse side, and the eagle perched on an olive branch on the reverse. This design has endured through multiple decades, symbolizing the strength and history of the United States. The 1991 D Washington quarter is part of the large series of quarters minted during the late 20th century. While quarters of this period were produced in massive quantities, many of them were circulated and worn down with time. However, there's a hidden gem within the series that few may realize. Certain coins from this year, especially those with rare minting errors or exceptional conditions, can actually hold substantial value. You may be wondering, what makes the 1991 D Washington quarter special? Let's break it down. The first thing to look at is the mint mark. In this case, the D mint mark tells us that the coin was produced at the Denver Mint. Although the Denver Mint produced millions of these coins, not all of them survived in great condition. A 1991 D quarter that is well preserved and free from damage can fetch a premium in the marketplace. Condition is key in the world of numismatics. A well-preserved quarter, with sharp details, no signs of wear, and no discoloration, can be quite valuable. The condition of the coin can often mean the difference between face value and a significant increase in price. If you've come across a 1991 D Washington quarter that looks fresh and free from the wear and tear that often accompanies coins that have been circulating for years, you're already looking at a valuable piece of currency. but condition alone isn't what sets some 1991 D Washington quarters apart. The real treasures are the minting errors, and there are several errors that could make your coin more valuable. One of the most exciting and sought-after types of minting errors is the double die error. This occurs when the coin is struck more than once, leading to a doubling effect in the design. For the 1991 D Washington quarter, this could mean doubled letters, a doubled date, or even doubled features on Washington's face. Imagine coming across a 1991 D quarter where the date or inscription appears doubled. This is the kind of error that collectors love, and it's highly prized in the numismatic community. Double die coins are rare and hard to come by, which makes them valuable. If you find a 1991 D quarter with this kind of error, don't hesitate to get it professionally graded and appraised. You could have an extremely valuable coin on your hands. Another minting error that could increase the value of the 1991 D Washington quarter is the misaligned die. This happens when the die that strikes the coin is not properly aligned, causing the design to be off-center or incomplete. A misaligned die can cause part of the design to be shifted or even missing entirely. A quarter with a misaligned die can be unique and rare, making it especially appealing to collectors who are looking for something that stands out from the rest. Then there are also die cracks and die breaks to consider. These errors occur when the die used to strike the coins develop small cracks or breaks, which are then transferred onto the coin during the minting process. If you notice a crack in the design of your 1991 D quarter, especially if it's across a prominent feature like the date or Washington's face, it could be a valuable error coin. While these errors may not be as common as double die or misaligned die errors, they still attract the attention of collectors who appreciate the uniqueness of such pieces. In terms of rarity, the 1991 D Washington quarter might not seem special at first glance, but when you factor in well-preserved examples, rare minting errors, or unique characteristics, the value starts to add up. A coin that is in uncirculated condition or has one of these errors could be worth much more than face value. So, how much could a 1991 D Washington quarter be worth if you found one in pristine condition or with a minting error? In general, a standard, well-preserved 1991 D quarter might be worth a little more than face value, especially if it has been graded highly by a professional. However, if you've stumbled upon a coin with a double die error, a misaligned die, or other rare minting flaws, you could be looking at a significant payout. The value of a 1991 D Washington quarter with these characteristics could reach $50,000. That's right, $50,000 for a single coin. It's hard to believe that such a seemingly ordinary quarter could carry such a hefty price tag, but that's the magic of coin collecting. The key is to keep an eye out for the details. Whether you're looking for a perfectly preserved coin or hunting for error coins, the 1991 D Washington quarter can be a valuable find if you know what to look for. So, if you have a 1991 D Washington quarter sitting in your collection or in your pocket change, take a closer look. Is it in great condition? Does it have any unusual features or minting errors? If you find something special, you might just be sitting on a rare coin worth a lot more than you think. That's all for today's video on the 1991 D Washington quarter dollar coin. If you enjoyed this exploration into the world of rare and valuable coins, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future coin discoveries. Thanks for watching, and happy collecting. You never know, your next big find could be just around the corner.